100% sand and water doesn't work, nothing will. There'll be nobody coming back saying, oh yeah, just add some chemicals.
I worked in the construction industry for the last 30 years, and I worked at management level and I worked at ground level.
Yes, sir.
And one thing I know is what's written in the textbooks and what's talked about in the boardrooms and what happens on site is completely different. And there's always a completely, you know, just once you get out on the site, they just turn a blind eye and do what you want. And I know that from experience.
Well,
So
our operators aren't going to be allowed to do that.
I don't believe anything I hear. And you could talk till tomorrow. And I still wouldn't believe, because I know from my own experience, that when it comes to the day and you want to get the job done, you'll do whatever you want to do. And I know that.
Sir, the EPA will see very obviously if there are any chemicals on our site. I don't disagree with some of your statements.
I have from experience, and I've seen what goes on site.
Well, I can only tell you that, and again, I don't plead here to convert you or get you to trust me. That is not my goal. My goal is to inform you so you can know the shape of the project.
Whether or not you use chemicals is not going to have any less of an impact on the industrialization of our landscape.
Yes. That's well said, because if you followed my journal article discussions, I believe that is the issue you really face. Boil away the chemicals. I believe you can do it safely. Boil away all of the other discussion. It comes down to a slight, my opinion, industrialization of part of the community.
It's a very, very large industrialization.
And
our livelihood is tourism and agriculture.
accept
You
it.
know what happens to our tourism?
I believe there's room for all of this. Now, you have all got the right to that concern, and that's what your councillors need to hear. That's what the consultation process should be for.
Ireland is smaller than California. The Northwest is the size of LA. I don't see how there is room for both of us. I just don't.
No. Well, I do.
You know?
I appreciate the concern.
And now just to clarify, so between now and Christmas, you're going to set about X-raying the ground to see.
Oh no, we won't be able. It's actually sound waves.
Okay.
And what happens is that they use a vibrator. It's a big truck that sounds rather lighthearted. But the fact is, it's a big truck with a vibrating engine on it. It literally sets down on the ground, and it shakes things just a little. So that what it does, you see, it would send a sound wave into the ground. And what we have in the industry, they would set up a line of sound recorders at distances a mile or 2 or 3 away from that. And what they're catching is, if you can picture it, the bouncing of the sound wave coming down off of the different rocks down there and then coming up. And we call that seismic because it's sound oriented, right? That would probably be a spring or summer project at the earliest.
And no pads will be built before then.
Oh, no, we can't. Ireland's rules, I want to be very clear to you all in this because it's important you do know this. The Republic of Ireland has granted us and Leitrim Co, and I believe Energy and Clare Basin, right? All the same licenses, which is a licensing option. Absolutely no drilling can take place in that time period. And to build a pad would imply that I had a reason to build a pad, and no planning permission will be granted for something that I don't have.
So you won't even be drilling for testing then?
Well, if you mean testing the gas?
Yeah.
No, the only thing we are allowed to do under the licensing option is to go down, say, 100 or 200 meters and get rock samples, like literally chips of the rock like you could grab right now, except we go a couple hundred meters in so that we get a piece of rock that is not weathered.
With a drill or?
It's like a mining, the quarry industries use this to sample where they're going to drill for, say, or set up mines. This is exactly the same tool. Hundreds of them drilled in Ireland. So all EPA regulate all kinds of rules, so nothing new. But the point is that is all we can do. Until we do that, actually, we can't even ask for planning permission because our requirements are that we have to complete that process.
Is the TELUS aerial survey anything to do with you?
This man knows lots about TELUS. Tony?
Yeah, it's not directly to do with us, but it will be used by the people who regulate us. Because one of the things they're doing is detecting levels of radon around the countryside. There is actually no problem with radon from the shales we're in, because radon comes from granite, so it comes from a different source altogether. But they will be testing that with low-level flights, which you'll see going over. We don't control those. That's a government.
Not even associated.
No, that's a government. That's a government project.
Will they be testing for radium as well?
Radon gas.
No, well, there's
It's
another.
just an overflight. They have these sensors on the plane
Yeah.
that measure what comes off. And it's about 67 meters in the air or something, isn't it, that they fly?
They fly very low, but
Yeah, it'll be
the radium itself is in granite, and you see you need a granite
Oh,
source.
have to
You need a granite source for.
Thousands.
So if you go into the Mourne Mountains in Northern Ireland, or actually there are much older granites in Donegal, you'll get relatively high levels of radon there, and those will be
Up on the
picked out
top.
quite
They just
clearly.
found
Got
radon
the
in
Ox
Mount
Mountains
Hamilton.
as well, the Ox Mountains that come round from
It
north.
just
that's
came
right.
out in our
Yes,
paper.
Yes, you get that
It
too.
came out in our paper 3 weeks ago that they found radon in houses in Mount Hamilton.
There's radon everywhere.
So how can
It's a
you
matter
say-
of whether
so
it's-
if it's getting up into a house, it's just built a foundation.
No,
How can you guarantee where you're drilling
there are
something to
low
bring some?
there are low levels there. There's no way our drilling will actually enhance the levels of radon in the area, or indeed radioactivity of any sort.
So you say,
It's not
so you say
information
we'll
we
release
have.
it.
It's true.
We'll
So
be
you
well
say-
below it.
There's no truth. So you say,
We can guarantee for that, yeah?
Oh,
And
yes.
what about the industrial landscape? You didn't really answer
Well,
that question.
no, I don't wish to answer it because that's your
course you
question.
don't.
No, what I mean is that's your question to answer, your community's
say no.
question. Well,
We say no.
and you have,
No!
you have that right.
Yes, absolutely.
I encourage you to do what your right allows you to do, which is tell your neighbors.
That's what we're doing. We're gonna make sure
Yeah.
that you guys go. We don't want
Yeah,
it.
you see,
We don't
I
want it in
understand.
any shape or
nothing
form.
personal.
I understand.
The other big issue is that the licenses you were granted was granted to you by a corrupt Fianna Fáil
Yeah,
government.
government we kicked
Right.
out.
And we don't believe anything that yeah, well, we're all paying the price here. And we don't believe there's anything other than corrupt. And that came from that government was corrupt.
Well, I understand people have a lot of concerns
Yeah,
about it because the way that the thing was, it was for what it's worth, it was a competitive bid process. 3 companies were
It's
bidding.
brown envelope job. Because that's evident.
Where's our envelope?
Was a brown envelope.
Our chairman
Yeah.
would be rather surprised to hear that since he's
Absolutely.
pretty tight.
Yeah. We're not dumb. Like we might be dressed in a suit.
Sir?
But we're not dumb.
Well, they make you wear a
don't
suit
mind.
in there, you know,
Yeah,
otherwise
yeah,
you don't
yeah.
look
What happens if
respectful.
fracking for chemicals is economically not viable? If
No.
you don't use chemicals, it's not viable economically.
Then we're gone.
And are other shareholders of other fracking companies, what about if they hear about this as well? Will this affect their share price?
If we do without chemicals, you mean,
Yes.
sir? Well, permit me a moment to say that I do hope that this works just fine. I know you don't want it to happen, some
But
of you.
isn't it
but
true that
if-
if you, let's say, frack without chemicals, you're only going to release 15 to 20% of the gas that you're normally released with chemicals? Isn't that true?
You would only release, we're thinking maybe 10% of the gas will come out of the ground. What I would want you, give me just a moment on this, I appreciate you have lots of thoughts and questions. The rock we're fracturing would be very similar to 500 meters thick of sidewalk. The gas is trapped inside that mix of rock, and the only way you get it out is to crack it. The chemicals do not interact with that rock except for one, which I wouldn't use anyways, it's acid. You know, a hydrochloric acid will dissolve a lot of things, right? Operators in the U.S. have been known to use hydrochloric acid because they wish to dissolve the rock ahead of a fracture. I think that's an extremely reckless process because guess what else it dissolves? The cement that's holding the well together. So it's a stupid idea for people to do that, but they still do it because it gets the job done quick, right? But if you are to frack that, now, in an ideal circumstance, there's no good analogy for this, folks, but if you pick up that 500 meters of rock and drop it, it'll crack. And that cracking would release some gas, but because you don't pulverize the rock into oblivion, into powder, you're lucky if you get about 10% of it out. The chemicals would actually not do that. The reason I make this distinction for you is in our lifetime, this will be the last form of natural gas, I believe, that can be extracted in the world, are these kinds of projects. And we'll be lucky if we get 10% to maybe 20% out of the best of them in the world. And after that, we're out of gas. So from that standpoint, this is Ireland's last version of gas. You've had
But
50
if we
years.
leave it there for 20, 30 years